Welcome to the Good Budget Way, where we share real-life stories about everyday people from all walks of life who spend, save, and give to what's truly important in life. I'm your host, Chien. I'm glad to hear the way that the guests on our podcast have been helping you think about what's truly important in your lives. Thank you all for subscribing and rating this podcast. Welcome to episode 4 of 11 on season 1 of the Good Budget Way. Last time we heard from Kenny and Becky, who shared with us how it's been going in the first few months of sharing finances and a budget as a married couple. They told us about how their conversations and even some arguments have deepened their relationship, and how their different habits and perspectives have turned out to be complementary strengths. So if you haven't heard it, definitely go back and give it a listen. I'm looking forward to introducing you to today's guests, Matt and Jenelle. They're here to share with us their story of figuring out how they can afford to retire near the people they love and want to grow old with. And in the process, they've decided that they're going to move out of the house they've lived in for 19 years and onto a tiny boat. And at the end, they're going to share with us how they're feeling right before making this big move. Well, I'm glad to have both of you here today. Would you start us off by introducing yourselves and tell us something about you?
Sure. My name is Matt. The key part of my life, though, is that my kids are all adults and are moving out. So we are at that point in life where we're just the two of us.
I'm Jenelle, and like he said, we're soon to be empty nesters. So we're excited about what new adventure is coming for us.
Yeah. So you guys are here to tell us about your adventure of figuring out how to live and eventually retire near the people you love, and in the process, choosing to move on to a boat. So that's kind of interesting. Not very many people do that. But start us off by telling us a little bit about when you started talking or thinking about boats at all.
Well, you've loved boats your whole life, so I always thought this was probably a dream of his since he was young.
And why did you get interested in boats?
I grew up in a desert, and
which is why you love boats.
which is why I love water. So I was a swimmer, and I sailed with my swim coach in regattas, and then eventually went to school to become a naval architect.
I see. So boats and water has been part of your life for a long time.
Yes,
and,
everything.
Yeah, and Jenelle, how did you get interested in boats?
I'm getting there still. Mostly it's been kind of fun to watch the joy in him being excited about boats. So it is kind of a way for me to allow him to enjoy something that he wouldn't have been able to do before. And then for me to watch that and learn to enjoy something with him.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool. Does it overlap with any other interests that you have?
Well, in a way, I sort of have an ulterior motive because it's part of the money saving thing. I said I could do this for at least a couple of years and then we'll see. But my goal is to be able to save money to buy a little piece of land and have either a tiny house or something where I could grow vegetables and, I don't know, fruit trees.
I see. So when you say having a piece of land, that to you is like living off the land, growing the vegetables, the fruits, food that you would eat from the land that you tend on your own.
Yeah.
And what about tiny houses? Why are you interested in tiny houses? Because it's something that people read about on the internet or watch on television, but very few people actually pursue it.
Yes. Well, we have lived for the last 19 years in a 3-bedroom house, raising 3 kids. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of hardwood floors.
Yes.
There's a lot of house to clean and a lot of house to keep up and a lot of heating bills to pay in the winter. And, you just use a lot more electricity, a lot more water, a lot more everything.
Yeah.
And you not only have the inside of the house to take care of, you have the outside of the house. So then I never get enough time to be outside like I want to be. So
what's your least favorite thing to take care of at your home right now?
The hardwood floors.
What do you have to do for the floors?
Oh, it's just sweeping more than once a day often.
Oh, wow.
Then, not the whole thing, but here and there.
Yeah.
You can constantly see stuff on the floor.
So that continues even past when the kids are dropping crumbs on the floor, huh?
Oh, yeah.
That's too bad for me. Okay, so you mentioned you're currently living in a 3-bedroom place. How many years have you lived there?
I think it's 19.
I see. And how old's your oldest right now?
23.
Okay. So it's basically the place that you raised your children in. They grew up in it. It's like the home they know. They have all their childhood memories and adolescence in there. So why would you want to leave?
Well, I mean, it is a place that we've rented from friends, and they also have adult children now. And we feel like it's a part of, we've been gifted with that house that is not something that we would have had otherwise. Mm-hmm. And it's because of their gift. And so now we don't need that much space. Mm-hmm. And they have adult kids, and their kids we would like to free the house up so that other people can use it and get as much gift as we did.
So then the logical next step then would be to look at like a smaller house or smaller apartment. Why wouldn't you go that route?
Well, we've been renting this house for 19 years, and so any rents we would find in a new place would be double or triple what we're doing now for a much smaller place.
Oh, wow. So you're living in a 3-bedroom place, and if you considered moving to like a smaller, maybe 1-bedroom place, the rent would be 2 or 3 times what you're currently paying?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It sounds like in your long-term plan, you'd like to purchase a piece of land and maybe have a small house on it. What would keep you from purchasing a piece of land right now?
Well, we don't have it in the bank.
Okay, so you don't have the cash for it?
No, not right now, no.
What if you were to go to somewhere less expensive than the place you're living in right now?
Well, I would prefer not to leave where we're at because we have a church family here and we're very, they're like our family. Mm-hmm. So it would be very difficult for us to move away from them. I see our future with them and they've been a part of our lives for 23 years. 23 years. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to leave them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're my family. They have helped us raise our kids. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it sounds like you see yourselves growing old together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jenelle and I both moved to the place where we're at from other places. Mm-hmm. So when we came here with a 6-month-old kid, we showed up, found this church, and they really literally were our family. Mm-hmm. And we've invested not in money, but in the group of people that we're around. And we want to not get the benefit of that necessarily, but we want to continue to live. We invested in that group because they're family, and we want to be there with them.
So it seems like you've really invested in these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to move away, how would you feel about that?
I mean, there have been times when we have thought about it. Mm-hmm. We're not particularly happy where we are in terms of geography. Mm-hmm. But it is the church that has kept us, the group of people and the church that has kept us where we are. And so leaving would, I don't know that it would be a defeat or anything like that, but it would definitely not be preference. It would be sad. Mm.
It sounds like this is the kind of group of people that you want to grow old with. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a story about someone in your community who has grown old and you've watched the community grow old with them?
Well, I can think of one woman in our congregation. She's passed away now a few years back, but she raised her kids here, and her family was she was very connected with our congregation. Mm-hmm. And then she actually got diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Mm. And when that happened, our church kind of rallied around her. And by that, I mean, we went with her to doctor's appointments, and we brought meals. Mm. We just kept her from being lonely during that time. Mm-hmm. And, we were able to be sad and cry with her, but then there was a period of time where we thought she was getting better, and we were able to rejoice and be very excited with her. And and then when it turned around and, the cancer, it turns out, was more severe, during that time we were able to visit with her and just be with her through the whole thing, from the beginning to the end. When she did eventually pass away, it was really hard on our congregation because she's very loved, and it was like losing someone in your family. And then after she was gone, then her husband was connected to us still because we had these relationships with him. I didn't personally know him that well, but there were others in the church who would go out and spend time with him and keep him. I don't know, his friends didn't disappear just because his wife who came to our church. So it's that kind of family that we have that yeah, that's what I long for when if I get older or if I get sick, that's what we do for each other. That's what we don't want to lose.
Right. So if you were to move somewhere else, maybe you'd end up in a geography that you like better or a climate that you like better, but then you would have walked away from all these relationships who are the people that you hope that you can walk with when they grow old and get sick, or if you grow old and get sick, that they would walk with you.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it's clear that you really want to stay in this location with the people that you love, but renting the place you've been renting probably doesn't make sense to keep doing. Renting a smaller place would be even more expensive, so that's not going to happen. You don't have the cash in the bank to buy your dream piece of land outright. So let's get into this idea of a boat, right? Typically, it seems like boats they're expensive. People kind of do it on the side in addition to having a home. How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think that's the normal perception of boating, and I'm sure it is mine as well, that it's expensive, that only rich people do that. But I think that as we've looked, we've actually found that that's not normally the case. I would say, like, a lot of people who live on boats, they're doing it because they really want it, and they're sacrificing other things so that they can have this boat. And the other thing is that boats often, there's a lot of years of boats, and those older boats are cheap in comparison to newer boats.
Model years like cars.
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
I get it.
You know, if you're buying a 40-year-old boat, you're not you're not going to need to take a loan out of a bank for that because it's not going to cost that much. On the other hand, you do have to pay for maintaining it, and so that can be a problem. As a matter of fact, the joke is, you buy a boat because it's a hole in the water to throw money in. But I think that our perception is that a home is similar.
If you were to own a home.
If you were to own a home and own a boat, then you would have two places to throw money. And it seems to us, we're looking forward, that having those two in one thing will not be any more expensive than having one. Having a home to maintain or having a home that's your boat to maintain seems like it should be par, and so not excessively expensive. On the other hand, having a boat in addition to a house would be more expense. So our hope is that by having the boat and having it be our house, that the money we would spend to take care of our house anyways will be what is used to take care of the boat and do that maintenance as well.
That makes sense. So how did you figure out how much it would cost to keep and maintain a boat and live on one? Because I've never lived on a boat, and I probably have spent fewer than 14 or 7 days on a boat in my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, I did a lot of internet searching of what other people said it cost. And then I did this little handwritten expense thing. I just doodled down on a piece of paper all the expenses that we have connected to with living in our house.
Okay.
And how much that is.
Yeah.
And then I did based on what other people have said it costs to live on a boat. And it was significantly cheaper to be on a boat.
So what kind of expenses are involved in being on a boat that would not be involved in land living?
Well, the first is that even if you own the boat, you have to pay for this. You have to rent the slip that you're in. So you can think of it as like a HOA fee or something, maybe.
You're like renting a piece of water.
Yeah. You're renting a spot. And along with that normally comes water and some amenities like bathrooms on shore and stuff like that.
So you mentioned that living on a boat, when you did all the expenses on paper, it looked like it would cost significantly less than living in the home that you're living in right now. What was the difference in cost savings?
When I figured it out, we were going to be able to at least save $2,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
And, every month you could put some in savings.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, $2,000 every month in savings.
And that then, over the course of time, it sounds like you were thinking maybe you could live on a boat for a couple years, and then during that time you could be saving up that cash towards this dream of buying a piece of land.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we did early, well, when Jenelle came up with the idea, or put the idea forward, I think we agreed.
It was Janelle's idea? But Matt, aren't you the one that loves boats?
Well, I wasn't gonna put it forward.
Why not?
Well, because it'd be too obviously my joy.
I see.
So we said that, we want to try. Let's try this. We want to try this, but we needed to try it. We decided that we needed to try it and not just like do a month and go, oh. So we've kind of committed to 2 years, potentially more. But the 2 years is we want to see if we can make it work for 2 years.
Yeah. So what are you doing to try to see if you can make it work?
Well, we started. The beginning of this was about a year ago. Literally in the summer of 2016. And for about 9 months, Jenelle hadn't even been on a boat as an adult. Well, she had. But so we spent a lot of time looking at boats, looking on Craigslist, going to a whole bunch of boats just to get Jenelle on them to start with and to see what there was. And, with houses and apartments, you kind of have a sense of what the different things are. But on boats, there's just all these different things, and you need to actually step into them and see what they're like. And so immediately Jenelle was like, sailboats? No.
Why not sailboats?
Well, they lean. They're intended to lean, and that doesn't make any sense to her.
And the floors are not flat all the way across from wall to wall.
Oh.
They're much rounder boats, and so there's much less area for flooring.
Okay, so it would be very different to live on a sailboat than on a boat that has floors that are flat and doesn't tip.
And also, sailboats are things that you can take out, and I might get some crazy ideas. So Jenelle was like, we're not going to sail to Hawaii, so sailboat is out.
I see.
So we took about 9 months looking at boats, and then eventually found one that would work for us. It ended up being a little different than we wanted. Then we had a list of all the things that would be excellent to have, and we had to make some adjustments. We had to fit our budget to, fit those things to our budget, and so we had to give up on a couple of things.
What'd you give up on?
The biggest one was size, I think. We wanted a boat that was about 10 feet longer than the boat we ended up with.
How long is the boat that you did end up purchasing?
It's 32 feet. So
okay, that sounds big for a boat, but small for a house.
Sounds very big. It does sound big, and when you look at it, it's big. But when you climb into it, suddenly it gets much smaller.
When you climb into it and imagine yourself living there full time for 2 years.
Exactly.
So what's it like inside?
So the boat that we purchased is a powerboat that has 2 cabins, forward and afterward, and the forward cabin has a galley and a bathroom, place to sit around a table, and quite a bit of potential storage. We'll have to work on that. And then the after cabin is very small, but is big enough for a bed, and some closet and stuff like that for living. So we intend to live in the back, sleep in the back, and live most of our time in the front. And then in between is the kind of the patio, the cockpit, which is outdoors but has a cover. And actually, on July 4th, we were at the boat for the whole day, and we ate outside on the deck, right? We're eating out on the deck, and it's something we've never done on our house. And it was actually quite relaxing. So to be even sitting in the marina after having used the boat for a day, have dinner, sit out on the deck, get to see the sunset. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
How do you imagine the more difficult spots of your marriage? Because every marriage has that, right? How do you imagine that playing out in a space that small?
Well, you always know where the other one's at. When one person gets up from their seat, the boat moves, So one potential thing I can see is I'm an early riser, and he likes to sleep in on the weekend. So Saturday morning is that's when he gets to sleep, and I'm up at like 6:30 or 7.
Uh-huh.
So if I get up, the boat's moving. There's no way for me to be awake.
Yeah.
And him to be able to sleep peacefully with. So that's one thing that I think could potentially annoy him.
Yeah.
Or annoy me, because then I feel like I can't move. And
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about this boat was that we were like, well, we can go someplace where we can't see the other person, but we can't go any place where we can't hear the other person. So it's that small. So, I mean, that was really when we came down to the boat, deciding on this boat. I mean, my question was, I really like this boat, but can our marriage survive this boat? And that was the decision we had to make.
And what do you think? Can your marriage survive it?
We bought it. The intention was, I think we can.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the adjustments that you had to make when you were purchasing the boat compared to your ideal list.
Oh, well, I had these things that I said were definite things we have to have.
Yeah.
One of them was have a refrigerator with a freezer that, 2 doors that open, freezer that opens separately. We didn't get that. The refrigerator that we ended up with is actually very small. It's probably comparable to what you find in a hotel, though possibly a little bigger than some hotels. But the freezer inside, basically you open one door, and then there's a tiny little spot in the top for a freezer.
So it doesn't stay as cold.
It does not.
Yes.
And that's going to take a lot of change because, the reason that we may stay with that is because of electricity usage. It's okay when you're at the dock and you're plugged in, but once you leave the dock, you're reliant upon your batteries. You have one solar panel. So a refrigerator could potentially suck up a lot of electricity.
Like full-size fridge.
Yeah.
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 So, but I assume that makes a lot of changes in terms of like how you shop and cook. Have you tried that out yet?
Every time we go to the boat, we have to plan what we're going to eat and then go to the store first.
Yeah.
And pick it up. And I suspect that we'll be buying food for 2 days at a time, which will be a big change. On the other hand, maybe things won't rot in the fridge like they do at home.
So you're not gonna shop at wholesale stores anymore.
Yeah, no more Costco visits.
Yeah.
Not for food. Yeah, and that's true that's similar to all things. That's kind of a smaller picture of everything. There's just not that much space on the boat. So it helps a lot with, I don't need that. It does actually help quite a bit, though.
Yeah. Well, but then you do have stuff, right? Because you've been living in this 3-bedroom place. What are you doing with all the stuff you have had?
We've been trying to figure out what to do with that. Yeah. We have these different ideas. Our daughter's pushing for an estate sale. That might be the simplest.
Okay.
So I imagine we'll do something like that and then at the end donate it, most of it. We will rent a storage unit for some things because my father liked to build furniture and he's no longer able to build things anymore and I don't want to get rid of those things. I don't want to delete our past by moving on a boat. So we will get a storage unit that hopefully is not gigantic, but that will be one of the costs. And I did put that into
on your paper,
on my little paper.
Yeah. That's interesting because it sounds like the boat living, it's a temporary experiment, right? An adventure that you're having for a couple years, but eventually you imagine yourself moving onto a piece of land where you might need and want that furniture again.
Yeah, we don't want to have to rebuy everything when we move back on land. But there are some things that we won't need. So we have a large dining set because when we were part of our church, we would have people over. When you have 3 adult kids, you need some space to be able to sit around a table. But I don't see that being needed. So that probably is one of the things that will go. Because when we do move into a smaller place on land, if we do, then we'll need smaller, and that wouldn't have worked anyway. So I would say that probably the hardest part about getting rid of stuff is the attachment to people. So we have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And most of it, if I don't need it, I can get rid of it, except, my dad gave me this, or this came from my grandfather, or all these things, or my kids made this in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a bit of ruthlessness in some ways to get, because you can't keep all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully there's ways to get around that. My thought on the kids stuff, you can't keep every diorama that your kid makes in elementary school.
Why ever not?
Although we did have, until recently, we did have a diorama that my daughter, who's 20, made in 5th grade. So it was pretty dusty. But my thought is that now with electronics and the digital thing that, I can take a photo of that and it stores it electronically. So artwork and paper stuff that isn't like actual physical stuff, I think you can photograph and get the same remembrance.
The memory of special times and special people in your past.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe even see it more.
So what's an example of something that's been hard to get rid of?
Right.
Well, one of the things that we've kind of had this little debate over is the bed. Because when my grandfather passed away, my parents gave me, like, each of the grandkids got $1,000. So I was like, okay, what can we do? So we decided to buy a mattress. And so now we're going to move to a boat. We don't have a need for this big queen-size mattress.
Yeah.
Couldn't even get it onto the boat, let alone get it to lay flat somewhere.
Yeah. So
I want to put it in storage and keep it. He's more like, why are we going to do that? So it's this strange emotional attachment to a mattress. But it's just because it came from my grandfather. Just,
Yeah, that's what you were talking about earlier. It's hard to get rid of things that are connected to people that you love.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now you're kind of at a point where you're about to make the big move out of the house, really closing that door, and then onto the boat full time. How are you feeling about the prospect of that at this point?
I wish we were there already. There's so much work to do between now and then. The months are going fast, and I wish all the work was done. And it's not. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, when we had originally done this, when we originally had the idea, our thought was we kind of picked a date out quite a ways, like a year and a half away. Said, well, let's aim for that. We actually told our friends who owned the house we lived in about the date, just so that they'd be aware. And that's in January of 18. And so we still have 6 months. And it's kind of amazing how quickly that moves forward, that date moves forward. I think we have, so far we've stuck to the plan. We said we were going to look around for, 6 to 9 months for a boat and buy one. That worked out. We have been with the boat for about 3 months now, trying to get a feel for it. Through the fall, we intend to live on it as much as a few days a week, just to get a sense of whether that's whether we're totally lunatics or not. But January is coming, and I think the one thing that we are stuck to is that, boat or not, January is the time when we're going to do something serious. And so really the boat is, to me, is like exciting to think that in January I'll be living on a boat. The prospect of moving out of the house is less, well, it's just as daunting, but it's a good daunting rather than just a total drag. So I think that I'm in a similar place to Jenelle, that I'm excited. I wish it was already here.
Yeah, it sounds like you're making a choice that, on the one hand, is about affordability, living in a place that is less expensive and enables you to stay close to the people that you love. But on the other hand, I really hear a sense of excitement and adventure. Like, this is an exciting thing to try and see how it'll turn out over the next couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in to share your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
What a fun story to hear Matt and Jenelle really take this idea of decide what's enough to the extreme. all the way from moving out of a 3-bedroom house and onto a 32-foot boat, so that they can spend on what's truly important to them, which is these relationships of people that they would like to grow old with and eventually retire with. Personally, that inspires me to cultivate the kinds of relationships that 20 or 30 years from now I could imagine growing old with folks and retiring together, so much so that we would be going to doctor's appointments with each other and even making financial choices around each other. Next time, we'll get to hear from Jeff. He's going to be here to tell us his story about buying a car and how he thought about what was truly important to him in the process of purchasing that car. Along the way, we'll get to hear also about how he got to be generous in that process. Thanks for listening to The Good Budget Way. If you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe for more and rate it to help other folks find it too. And let us know what you thought of Matt and Jenelle's story on our website at goodbudget.com/podcast. And if they've inspired you to budget with a Y, get started with your budget using our budget tools that are great for planning ahead at goodbudget.com, or look for the Good Budget app on Google Play or the App Store. Happy budgeting!